Hi, this is Cheryl Metcalf. I have Asperger's syndrome, and my son has autism. And Child Protective Services was on my case for 5 years. And so there's the subject of emotional regulation in parents and emotional regulation in their children. And in autism spectrum disorders, they said that there's the issue of poor emotional regulation. And the frontal lobe, it said, does not develop into an adult function, level function, until the age of 25. Well, the frontal lobe is involved in emotional regulation. A person with poor emotional regulation may be subject to possibly swearing more, emotional outbursts, and violent behavior, aggressive behavior. And so what I was looking into, this is what I found online, is that choline is needed for the frontal lobe to work better, to help it work at a more mature level. And it helps with reading social behavior as well. Because people with poor frontal lobe behavior, frontal lobe function, tend to struggle with social behavior and how to behave socially, which is an autism symptom. And so CPS never told me this. They had me in a parenting class, but they never told me this. And the frontal lobe, well, it's not just involved in how to read social behavior and knowing how to act socially as well. But the frontal lobe is involved in the executive functions, like problem solving, planning, prioritizing, and organizing, which are skills that a person would need that would help them incredibly when it comes to being a parent. Those are needed skills when it comes to being a parent, I'll tell you. And they didn't tell me that. And they didn't have me go to a doctor that could have told me that. Those are skills that would have made me a much better mom. And not only would that have helped me, but that would have helped my son with his development. And incredibly. That would have helped him in areas where he was delayed. And those are things where, had my son done better, well, I might not have gotten as frustrated with my son too. So there's things that they weren't telling me that would have behooved both me and my son, and they didn't tell me. And there are things that they kept from me and my son that I feel it was inappropriate for them not to tell me. There's things that could have made that go much more smoothly and much more easier and reduced how much time they were on my case and how much time I was being spent being traumatized. And I was being made to feel like I was not a good enough parent and that I could never be a good enough parent. And there were supplements and things that they could have had me try on both me and my son that would have improved that situation. So withholding key information from me that would have made me a better parent, that wasn't fair to me. To leave me feeling that way about myself when they weren't telling me key information that would have made that better, that's not a nice thing to do to somebody. That is a hideous thing to do to somebody. That is emotional abuse. What they did to me was emotional abuse. They're sitting there saying that I shouldn't be emotionally abusing my kid, or that parents shouldn't emotionally abuse their kids, and they were emotionally abusing me. Why is that okay? I'd like to know. This is Cheryl Metcalf speaking.